She shielded her student from gunfire. Unaware the little boy was a vampire king's son.
The city was quiet, but only in the way that hides danger.
The streets of Eldenport were drenched in the last glow of sunset, orange light bleeding between the crooked rooftops and twisted alleyways. A gentle wind stirred the papers on the cobblestones, carrying with it the smell of rain yet to fall, of smoke from distant chimneys, and something faintly metallic like iron. Arya Sorel moved with careful steps along the narrow street, her leather boots barely making a sound. She was small in frame, almost delicate, but there was a steel in her eyes that betrayed years of discipline. In her arms she carried a small satchel, the kind a teacher would have, filled with parchment, ink, and the few books she could manage to carry home. Her life had been quiet, devoted to her students, to teaching them about stories and history, about the world outside their small academy walls.
That was enough.
At least, it had been enough. Until tonight! A shadow moved along the side of the alley before her, and Arya froze, her breath caught, but she did not panic. She had been trained to face threats, though rarely. They had come this close, rarely so immediate. The shadow shifted, and the faint sound of hurried footsteps echoed. Breath. Then she heard it. A boy's voice, soft but urgent, calling her name. Miss Sorel! Wait! She turned and saw him. A small boy, no more than 10, with dark hair that clung to his pale face. His eyes were wide, green and shining even in the dimming light. He looked ordinary enough at first glance, but there was a weight to him, an air of command and confidence that seemed far too old for his age. "Tommy," she asked, recognizing her student. Her voice softened, and she knelt slightly, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "What are you doing out here?" "It's almost dark." Before she could finish, a sharp, metallic click shattered the calm. Arya's heart stopped. The sound of a gun being cocked echoed from the shadows. Her instincts surged. She reacted without thinking, pulling the boy down behind her, arms wrapping around him. "Stay behind me," she hissed, pressing herself against the rough wall of the alley. The first shot rang out, ricocheting off the stone with a loud clang. Arya felt it near her ear, a shock of heat and danger that set every nerve on fire. She shielded Tommy instinctively, though she had no idea why someone would want to harm a child in this quiet part of the city. Her mind raced, scanning the dark corners for the figure that had threatened them. Then she saw him. A man, tall and lean, cloaked in black, moved like a shadow, his gun trained on them. The city's last light caught on the blade of his knife, glinting faintly. There was no hesitation in his movements, only purpose. Arya's stomach twisted with fear, and something else. A strange recognition that this was no ordinary street thug. Desperation. She tightened her grip on Tommy. "Run!" she shouted. But he shook his head. I can't," he whispered. There was a fear there, yes, but also defiance. The man stepped closer. "The boy is coming with me," he said, his voice low and calm. No one interferes. Arya's mind raced. She was a teacher, not a warrior, but years of self-defense and survival training came rushing back. She couldn't let him take Tommy. Not like this, not in front of her. She pushed herself off the wall, standing between the boy and the stranger. "You won't hurt him," she said, voice steady even as her heart thundered. The man smirked, a cold, calculating expression. Brave, foolish. Both are fleeting. "Step aside, woman." And then, Just as she expected him to strike, the boy did something unexpected. Tommy's small hand shot out, and a strange, almost invisible force rippled through the alley. The man staggered, eyes widening, as if reality itself had pushed him back. Arya blinked, stunned, but before she could speak, the stranger recovered and lunged forward again. Arya reacted instinctively, throwing her body in front of Tommy. Bast. A second shot rang out, but this time it hit her shoulder. Pain flared, sharp and burning, yet she didn't cry out. Instead, she pressed herself closer to the boy, using every ounce of her strength to shield him. The man hesitated, muttering something under his breath, and then vanished. Just like that. The alley was silent once more. Thus, Arya sank to the ground, holding Tommy close. He pressed his small body against her, trembling. His eyes, so bright and alive, looked almost otherworldly. What are you?" she asked softly, more to herself than to him. Tommy didn't answer. His hands were clenched tightly in her coat, and for a long moment he just stared at her with those deep green eyes. There was a secret there, something ancient and powerful, hidden beneath the surface of the boy she thought she knew. The sound of distant church bells cut through the night air. Arya realized her shoulder was bleeding, the wound sharp but manageable. She brushed a hand over it, biting back a gasp. More pressing than the pain was the overwhelming sense that nothing about this night was ordinary. "Come on," she said finally, her voice firmer now. "We need to get somewhere safe." Tommy nodded, still silent, and they moved carefully through the winding streets. Every shadow seemed alive, every corner a potential threat. Best. Yet, despite her fear, Arya felt an unexplainable pull toward him, a strange responsibility and connection that went beyond the bounds of teacher and student. They reached the small academy building, dark and empty except for the flickering lanterns in the main hall. Arya helped Tommy inside and set him down gently. He looked around with cautious eyes, as if weighing the safety of the room against some invisible threat. "You can't tell anyone what happened tonight," she said, more gently now, almost pleading. "No, one can know." "I know, I can't, but not yet." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken meaning. Arya realized that the boy she had always thought of as ordinary had a depth, a hidden world inside him she could barely begin to understand. A part of her wanted to ask, wanted to know everything, but another part of her was terrified of the answer. The wind outside grew colder, carrying the faint scent of iron again. Arya glanced toward the window, unease crawling over her skin. Face. Something ancient and dark had brushed against their lives tonight, and she had no idea how close they had come to losing Tommy, or what would come next. She helped him to a small chair, brushing a stray lock of hair from his face. Breaths. "Rest now. I'll stay." Tommy nodded, but his eyes never left hers.
There was a seriousness there, a knowledge that far exceeded his years.
Arya felt it in her chest, a mixture of awe and fear. Something inside him was powerful, dangerous perhaps, but also vulnerable in a way that tugged at her heart. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the old building settling. Arya kept watch, her mind replaying the events in the alley over and over. How had Tommy? What had that man wanted? And most terrifying of all, who was he? Really? As midnight approached, Tommy finally spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "Bah, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to. But I should. I'm not like other children." Bess. Arya felt her heart tighten, I know, she said softly, though she did not. There was a weight to his words that pressed against her, a gravity she could not deny. Tommy looked down at his hands, small and pale, as though hiding something within them. I'm the son of a king, he said, almost reluctantly. A vampire king. My life, it's not like yours. It never could be. Arya froze, her mind spinning. She had always believed in stories and legends, in myths passed down through the ages, but she had never imagined they could be real. Not in her city, not in her life. Bare. Yet here was the truth, laid bare by the boy she had sworn to protect. The words hung between them like a shadow, heavy and impossible. Banned. Arya's heart ached, not with fear exactly, but with the weight of responsibility and the strange, unspoken connection that had already begun to form between them. She reached out, hesitated, and then placed a hand gently on his shoulder.
I don't know what that means for you or for me, she said quietly. But I won't let anyone hurt you.
I promise. Tommy's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, and for a moment Arya allowed herself to believe.
But outside in the darkness of Eldenport, eyes watched from the shadows, a whisper of movement, a glint of something cold and sharp, and the faintest echo of a voice that promised, "This is far from over." And with that, the night seemed to close in around them, thick, with danger, secrets, and the pull of destinies yet to collide. The next morning the city of Eldenport awoke slowly, as if reluctant to stir from the shadows. Mist clung to the cobblestones, curling around lampposts like silver smoke. Arya Sorel moved through the quiet streets, careful not to draw attention. Her shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed her, a constant reminder of last night's danger. Tommy followed her, moving with a grace that belied his years. There was an otherworldly quality to him, a subtle rhythm in the way he walked, as though the world bent slightly to accommodate him. Arya could not look away. Each time she glanced at him, there was a pull, a strange sense that he was both a child in need and something far more powerful. They entered the academy, its old stone walls echoing with the silence of an empty morning. Sunlight barely touched the halls, leaving them dim and cool. Arya guided Tommy to a small room at the back where they could speak without fear. "Bay, tell me everything," she said softly, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of fear and curiosity inside her. Tommy hesitated, his green eyes reflecting a weight far beyond his years.
I can't tell you everything, he admitted. Not yet.
Bem.
My father, the king, he doesn't like his children to be exposed.
And my life, it's bound to him in ways you won't understand. Arya swallowed hard, meeting his gaze. Try me. I may not understand it now, but I can protect you.
I can help you.
Barry. No one helps a king's child, not truly. For a long moment silence stretched between them. Outside, the city stirred with the ordinary sounds of life. But inside, the academy felt suspended in time, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Finally, Tommy spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm a vampire, but not like the stories.
I don't drink humans.
My father, he rules a kingdom hidden from your world. We have enemies, humans, and others. He keeps me here for safety. until the time comes for me to take my place. Rasp.
Arya felt a chill run down her spine, but she held her composure.
And last night? The man with the gun? Tommy's hands clenched. He's part of a faction that wants to overthrow my father.
They think if they hurt me, they can weaken the kingdom. They're patient.
Bet. They watch. They wait. Beck. Arya's mind raced. A child, but a target for political schemes and violence. And she had been standing in front of him, shielding him from danger. Her chest tightened, a mixture of fear, anger, and something else, something she could not yet name.
You're not alone, she said finally.
I'll stay with you. We'll figure this out together. Tommy looked at her, and for a moment she saw a flicker of something vulnerable, something he rarely showed anyone. A small boy who wanted nothing more than safety and comfort. Thank you, he said quietly. The day passed slowly. Arya tried to teach him as usual, keeping the lesson simple, though her thoughts kept drifting to last night's events. Every time she glanced at Tommy, she was reminded that he was not just a student. He was a prince of a hidden kingdom, a being whose life was shaped by darkness and power far beyond her comprehension. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the academy's courtyard, Tommy suddenly stiffened. He looked toward the window, his green eyes wide. The blood moon, he whispered. It's coming tonight.
Arya frowned.
The blood moon? It's rare, he said, his voice tense. It marks a time of power for my kind.
My father will be vigilant tonight, but so will our enemies. We must be careful.
The sky darkened, clouds rolling in like a tide of shadow. Arya felt the air thicken, charged with an unseen energy. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Something was coming. Something ancient. Something that could change everything. She followed Tommy to the roof of the academy, where he leaned against the parapet, eyes scanning the horizon. From up here, the city seemed small, insignificant compared to the forces moving in the darkness. Despair. You've lived your whole life here, he said suddenly, his voice softer. You think this is the most dangerous place on Earth. But it's only the beginning. You don't know the world, the real world. Arya's stomach tightened. She had always believed in stories, in myths and legends, but standing here with Tommy, she felt the weight of reality pressing down. His words were not exaggeration. She could sense the danger in the wind, in the shifting shadows, in the way the city seemed to hold its breath.
I'll learn, she said. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Tommy's gaze lingered on her, intense and searching.
Some things can't be protected, he said quietly. Some fates are inescapable. Before she could respond, a sound came from the street below, a whisper of movement, a soft footfall that made the hairs on her arms stand. Bay. She scanned the streets, but saw nothing. Then, just as suddenly, the feeling passed, leaving only silence and the distant tolling of church bells. Enemies, Tommy muttered. Always watching. Arya gritted her teeth. Then we'll watch them first. We'll be ready. Bang. Night fell fully, and the sky took on a deep crimson hue. The blood moon rose, casting an eerie glow over the city. Arya felt a shiver of foreboding. Something about the moon seemed to amplify the tension in the air, as if the city itself held its breath in fear of what was coming. Tommy moved closer to her. "I need to show you something," he said. His eyes glimmered with an emotion she couldn't read. Fear, caution, or perhaps something deeper. He led her to a hidden chamber beneath the academy, a room she had never known existed. Space. The walls were lined with ancient symbols, carved deep into the stone. A faint light glowed from crystal sconces, illuminating the intricate patterns. "This place," Arya whispered, awe mingled with unease.
It's where my father keeps the records of our kind, Tommy said.
"And where I train. I can't leave this city, but I must learn control. Tonight, the blood moon will awaken powers I cannot hide forever." He turned to her, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "There are things I can do, things I didn't show you last night. But you need to understand, my strength is not always safe. Even for me." Arya felt a mix of fear and fascination. This boy, so young yet so powerful, carried within him a world she had never imagined. She reached out, touching his arm lightly, grounding herself to the moment. "I'm here," she said. "Whatever comes, I won't leave you." A sudden noise made them both jump, a sharp rap at the chamber door. Tommy's eyes narrowed. "They found us," he whispered. His small body tensed, ready for something she could not see. The door burst open, and a figure stepped inside. Arya's heart stopped. The stranger from the alley, tall, dark, and dangerous, stood there, a cruel smile on his face. "Looking for someone?" he asked smoothly. His eyes flicked to Tommy, then to Arya. "But I see you've protected him well, but protection only lasts so long." Tommy stepped forward, small but unyielding. "You won't touch me," he said, voice firm despite his size. The man laughed, a low, chilling sound. "Such bravery," he said. "It's admirable. But bravery won't save you tonight." Arya moved in front of Tommy, her body instinctively shielding him. "Burse. Leave," she said firmly. "Now." "Oh, I don't think so," he said, and in a sudden motion he vanished, leaving only a whisper of movement, a chill in the air, and the echo of a threat unspoken. Tommy looked at Arya, his face pale but resolute. This is only the beginning," he said. "The blood moon awakens not just power, but also desire, for control, for dominance, for vengeance. Tonight they will come. And we must be ready." Arya felt the weight of destiny pressing down on her shoulders. She had thought teaching was the most she could do for someone. Bye. Now, she realized that protecting Tommy meant stepping into a world she had never imagined. One of darkness, power, and ancient feuds that could swallow them whole. She reached out again, taking his small hand in hers. "We'll face it together," she said, though a part of her wondered if even together it would be enough. Outside, the blood moon hung low, its crimson light bathing the city in shadows. Somewhere in the distance, wings stirred, and eyes watched from hidden places. The night whispered secrets and threats alike. And in that silence, Arya understood something she could not yet put into words. Her life, Tommy's life, and the fate of the Hidden Kingdom were now intertwined. There was no turning back. The night deepened over Eldenport, heavy and silent, as if the city itself waited in fear.
Arya and Tommy stayed within the hidden chamber beneath the academy, the faint glow of the crystals casting long shadows along the carved stone walls.
The blood moon outside painted everything in a muted red light, making the edges of the room seem alive, shifting, and watchful. Tommy's eyes followed every movement, every flicker of shadow. "They're close," he murmured, his voice low, tense. "Not just the ones from last night. Others, the factions that hunt my kind. They'll come in waves, testing strength and resolve. And Bess, I may not be ready." Arya placed her hand on his shoulder, feeling the strange warmth and energy beneath his skin. "We'll face them together," she said firmly. Her voice trembled slightly, but she could not show fear. Not now. Not when he needed her. Earth. He looked at her, eyes glowing faintly in the crimson light. "I've been trained to fight," he said. "But even I cannot control everything. Tonight, my father's magic is distant, and the enemies know it. They'll test me. And you..."
You'll be in the middle.
Arya swallowed hard breath. Her heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the deep, unspoken bond that had begun to form between them. A teacher and her student, yet something more lingered in the space between them. A pull neither could name. And now, as the danger closed in, that bond would be tested. Before she could respond, a sudden wind swept through the chamber, snuffing out one of the crystal lights. The shadows lengthened, and a whisper of movement passed along the walls. Tommy stiffened. "They're here," he said. The first figure appeared at the doorway, stepping from shadow into dim light. A woman, cloaked in dark velvet, with eyes sharp and calculating, her presence commanding. "So, the little prince hides beneath the walls," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "And you, the mortal who dares protect him." Bet.
Arya stepped forward, standing between Tommy and the woman. "Leave," she said, firm and unwavering.
"Whatever you want, you won't take him." The woman's lips curved into a smirk. Bold. But boldness is often punished. She raised her hands, and a wave of energy surged through the room. Arya felt it press against her chest like invisible hands trying to crush the air from her lungs. She gasped but remained upright, refusing to step back. But Tommy's hands glowed faintly. "Stay close to me," he whispered, placing his small palm against hers. A pulse of energy flowed between them, warming her, steadying her. In that moment, Arya understood that his strength was not only physical, but tied to something deeper. His very essence, his lineage, the hidden power of his father's blood. The woman advanced, her voice sharp. "You cannot hide forever!" The blood moon awakens more than strength. It awakens desire, control, fear, obedience. "You think you are ready, little prince, but tonight your power will be measured, and those who fail..." She let the words hang, dangerous and deliberate.
Tommy's hands clenched into fists.
"I won't fail," he said, voice firm despite his youth. His green eyes glimmered with a power that made Arya's heart race. There was a gravity in him now, a weight of command that seemed impossible for someone so small. Arya's stomach tightened. She had always known this boy carried secrets, but now she was seeing a glimpse of the world he came from, a world of dominance and darkness, of ancient magic and inevitable conflict. And in the midst of it, she realized something terrifying. Protecting him might not just mean facing enemies from outside, but confronting forces that lived inside his world, forces she could not control. The woman's energy surged again, striking at Tommy. Brave. Arya flung herself forward, taking the brunt of it. A sharp pain shot through her side, but she did not cry out. Instead, she pressed herself closer to Tommy, shielding him as best she could. The crystals flickered violently, casting strange patterns across the walls. Shadows danced like living things, and the air itself seemed to hum with tension. Tommy's voice rang out, strong and commanding. Enough! The energy in the room shifted, responding to him. Arya felt it ripple through her, strange and warm, and then the woman was forced back, stumbling slightly. The power emanating from Tommy was raw, unrefined, but undeniably strong. It made the room hum, made Arya's heart race with awe and fear. This was not just a child. This was the son of a king, a being born with strength and potential far beyond anything she had known. The woman's eyes narrowed. Bed.
"You are powerful," she said, her voice both admiring and fearful. "But the blood moon does not last forever."
Soon the consequences will come, and when they do, your protector cannot save you. Before Arya could respond, the woman vanished, leaving behind only the faintest trace of shadow and a whisper of a promise. The reckoning is coming. Tommy exhaled, tension leaving his small shoulders. They test me, he said quietly. Every night, someone watches, someone challenges. They want to weaken me before my father can intervene. They will not stop! Arya touched his arm, trembling slightly from the intensity of what had just happened. You're not alone, she whispered. I'm here. I will face it with you. Tommy's gaze softened for a moment, and she felt the pull between them more strongly than ever.
It was not romantic in the way adults think, but it was a bond forged in fire, fear, and trust.
He had led her into a world he had hidden from everyone else, and she had risked herself to protect him. And now, in the shadow of the blood moon, their connection was undeniable. The night stretched on, tense and fragile. They remained in the hidden chamber, preparing for what would come. Tommy guided Arya through exercises, teaching her to sense the subtle shifts of magic and danger around them. She felt clumsy at first, untrained in the ways of supernatural power, but slowly she began to sense patterns, rhythms, and the invisible currents that shaped the world of the hidden kingdom. Hours passed. Arya could feel the energy of the blood moon strengthening, pulsing through the city like a heartbeat. Something ancient and restless stirred in the darkness. Every shadow could be a threat, every whisper a warning. And somewhere beyond the walls of Eldenport, enemies gathered, waiting for the moment to strike. Do you ever wonder, Tommy said suddenly, his voice quiet but firm, what it means to be born into this? Arya looked at him. I can't imagine it, she admitted. But I do know, whatever it means, you are not alone. I won't let you face it alone. He smiled faintly, the tension in his small shoulders easing for a moment. I've never had someone like you, he admitted. Someone who isn't afraid, who doesn't run. It matters.
Arya's heart ached at his words.
The boy before her, powerful and bound by fate, still carried the vulnerability of a child. She wanted to protect him, comfort him, but she also understood that his destiny was heavier than anyone's, heavier than even she could bear entirely. Suddenly, the crystal lights flickered violently, shadows twisting unnaturally along the walls. Tommy stiffened. They're coming, he said, voice tense. Before Arya could react, a low growl echoed through the chamber, deep and guttural, reverberating through the stone. The air itself seemed to pulse with danger. From the corner of the room, figures emerged, cloaked in black, eyes glowing faintly in the dim red light of the blood moon. They moved with purpose, silent and deadly.
Aya drew herself up, standing in front of Tommy.
"They behind me," she whispered. Tommy's eyes glimmered, green and fierce. "No, not this time." Psst. His small fists glowed with faint light, energy rippling around him like a protective shield. "I will not hide. I will not run. Tonight, we face them together." The shadows paused, as if recognizing the surge of power emanating from the boy. And then, with a sudden, coordinated motion, they advanced. Arya's breath caught. This was not like last night. Last night had been a warning. This night was a test. The forces arrayed before them were stronger, more determined, and hungrier for victory. And at the center of it all stood Tommy, small but unyielding, his powers barely controlled but terrifyingly potent. The room seemed to hum, alive with magic, fear, and determination. Arya felt herself trembling, not from fear, but from the realization that the night would change everything. For Tommy, for herself, for the hidden kingdom that had remained a secret for centuries. Nothing would ever be the same again. And then, in the midst of the tension, Tommy looked at her, eyes fierce and unwavering. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "we survive.
Hey.
Together." The city of Eldenport lay under the blood moon, its red light casting the streets in a color both beautiful and terrifying. The air was thick with tension, as if the night itself held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. Inside the academy, the hidden chamber glowed faintly, the crystals illuminating the room with an ethereal shimmer. Shadows moved along the walls like restless spirits, stirred by powers both old and dangerous. Arya Sorel stood at the center of the room, her shoulder still bruised from the wound she had received days before, her hand gripping the edge of a crystal sconce. She could feel the energy in the air, sharp and alive, humming through her veins like electricity. She glanced at Tommy, who stood beside her, small yet impossibly strong, his green eyes glowing with power and determination, respectively. "They're coming," he said quietly, voice steady despite the tension. "Tonight, they test not just me, but us." She had always thought of herself as a teacher, a protector, a guide, but tonight she realized her role was different. She was a shield, yes, but also a companion in a world she could barely understand. "We'll face them together," she said, meeting his gaze. But Tommy nodded. "We have to." Outside, the shadows moved closer. Figures emerged from the darkness, cloaked in black, eyes glinting with malice. They were the faction that had hunted Tommy for weeks, the ones who sought to overthrow his father and claim the hidden kingdom. But this time, they would find more than a child. They would find a boy who had inherited strength beyond their imagination, and a woman who refused to let him fall. The first figure stepped forward, a man tall and lithe, his presence commanding. He moved with the grace of a predator, eyes fixed on Tommy. "Little Prince," he said, voice smooth but dangerous.
"You cannot escape your fate. Your power is impressive, but not enough."
Burst. Tommy's hands glowed, energy rippling outward.
"I am not escaping,"
he said firmly. "I am standing, and I will not be broken." Arya felt the energy wash over her as well, strange warmth mingling with fear. But she realized that the boy's power was not just physical. It was tied to his heart, his courage, and the bond between them. She placed a hand on his arm. "I'm here," she said softly. "We face this together." The enemy advanced and the room seemed to pulse with magic. Shadows twisted and surged, but Tommy did not falter. He stepped forward, small fists raised, energy coiling around him like serpents of light. Arya stayed at his side, moving instinctively to shield him whenever danger surged too close. She had no magic of her own, but she had strength of heart and clarity of purpose, and that made her vital in ways even she could not measure. The first clash erupted suddenly. The enemy struck with speed, but Tommy reacted faster. A pulse of energy radiated from him, throwing the intruders backward. The chamber shook, dust falling from the ceilings as magic collided with magic. Arya ducked instinctively as a figure lunged toward them, glowing faintly under the blood moon's light. She felt the surge of Tommy's power push the attacker back before harm could reach her. Each movement, each strike was precise yet unrefined, a reminder that Tommy was still a boy learning the full weight of his inheritance.
One of the cloaked figures broke through the energy barrier, approaching Tommy with a knife tipped in a strange dark metal.
Arya reacted instantly, stepping between them and catching the weapon with a strength born of desperation.
The figure froze, stunned, before Tommy's hands flared with a blinding light.
The intruder was thrown across the room, vanishing into shadow.
Arya's breath came in short gasps.
The boy beside her, so small and yet so formidable, was a force unlike anything she had ever seen but Besaid. And yet he was still a child, still vulnerable, still needing her trust and courage. She realized then that the bond between them had become more than protection. It had become reliance, a partnership forged in fire and fear. The battle intensified. Shadows pressed from every side, whispering threats, moving with intent. Tommy's hands glowed brighter, his small frame radiating energy that lit the chamber in sharp reds and whites. Each strike sent enemies tumbling back, but more came, relentless. Arya could feel her own fear building, but she forced it down, focusing instead on him. She caught his hand when a shadow lunged, grounding him in the midst of chaos.
Stay with me, she shouted over the roar of energy and conflict. We survived together.
Tommy's eyes met hers, full of trust and courage.
"Always," he said, voice firm. And then the moment came, the crescendo of power. The blood moon hung at its zenith, bathing the city in crimson light. Tommy's energy surged, coiling around him like a storm, unrestrained and unstoppable. Shadows screamed, recoiling from the force of his presence. Arya felt the room shift beneath her feet, as if the walls themselves recognized the strength of the young vampire prince. The intruders faltered, fear flickering in their eyes. None of them had faced a force like this, raw and untamed, yet guided by courage and a bond they could not comprehend. Tommy stepped forward, small yet unyielding, and a pulse of light radiated outward, knocking back all who dared approach. Arya held onto his arm, feeling the power wash over her. It was frightening, magnificent, and beautiful, a reminder that the boy she had protected was also a being of destiny, of power that could reshape worlds. But then the final threat appeared. The woman from before, cloaked in velvet, eyes sharp and dangerous. She moved with an elegance that made her almost untouchable, her presence a challenge to Tommy's strength. "You have power," she said, voice cold. "But control is everything. You are untested, unshaped."
And in the end, strength alone cannot save you. Tommy stepped forward, glowing brighter energy coiling around him.
"I don't need to be perfect," he said. "I need to stand, and I will." Arya's heart surged as she saw the courage in him, the determination, the willingness to face impossibility.
She realized then that power alone was not what made him strong. It was his heart, his loyalty, his courage, and the bond they shared. The woman struck, and the air exploded with energy.
Light met shadow, force clashing with force. Arya shielded herself instinctively, feeling the raw magic ripple through her bones. But Tommy did not falter. His small fists glowed brighter, and the energy around him pulsed like a heartbeat, guided by his will and his courage. With a final surge, the energy of the blood moon combined with Tommy's own strength, and the shadows were driven back. The intruders vanished into the night, leaving only silence, the faint scent of iron and ozone in the air. The velvet-cloaked woman lingered for a moment, her expression unreadable, then dissipated into shadow, leaving a whisper in the wind. This is not over. Arya rushed to him, helping him to his feet, her hands trembling from relief and awe. You did it, she whispered. He looked at her, eyes still glowing faintly, a small smile breaking through the fatigue. We did it, he said softly.
I couldn't have without you. Arya's chest tightened. It was more than pride, more than relief.
She realized that protecting him, standing with him through the storm, had changed her. She was no longer merely a teacher, and he was no longer merely a student. They had become allies, partners, bound by trust, courage, and the fire of shared experience. The blood moon began to fade, the crimson light softening to silver, and then to the cool darkness of night. Outside, Eldenport seemed to breathe again, its streets quiet, its shadows less menacing. But Arya knew the truth. This night had changed everything. She helped Tommy to a chair, sitting beside him. The danger, it's not gone, she said softly. They'll come again. Tommy nodded, his small hand brushing hers. I know. But tonight, I learned something important. Strength isn't just about power. It's about courage, about trust, about who stands with you.
Arya's heart ached, full of emotion she could not fully name. And I will stand with you, she said.
Always. For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the quiet hum of the world returning to stillness. The blood moon had passed, but its lessons remained. They had faced darkness together, and though the future was uncertain, they had discovered something greater than fear. Bond, courage, and trust. And in the shadows outside, unseen eyes watched, waiting for another night, another challenge. Yet for now, in this quiet moment, Arya and Tommy shared a victory, a triumph not just of power, but of heart. They were changed.
They were ready, and the hidden kingdom, ancient and mysterious, would rise again, not just through the strength of its king, but through the courage of his son and the mortal who chose to stand beside him.